Assalamu alaikum, guys. I don't know if it's streaming, but I'm just going to give it a couple of seconds and Brother Wadud is going to join me here. Assalamu alaikum, Brother Wadud.
Assalamualaikum. How are you? Can you
I'm
hear
doing
me?
well. Yes, I can hear you now.
Perfect.
Alhamdulillah. So, Jazakallah khair for joining us, Brother Wadud. It's such a pleasure to have you here. 'Cause, it's been difficult. Last more than a month,
Yeah.
subhanAllah. It's been a challenging time managing our emotional state. I'm hearing an echo.
I don't quite hear the echo, but just the voice is just coming a little bit. There's a little bit of lapse.
Okay. Um, I'm hearing myself like a feedback coming back in. Do you have a headset or something? Because I'm not at home. Otherwise, maybe on my end I could have done something. But that's definitely
Yeah, but I can hear you clearly though.
okay.
Headset. Let me
Or anything
think. No, I don't have a
that
headset with
will
me.
eliminate the voice going back in.
Oh yeah, I got what you're saying. No, I don't have a headset. What I
AirPods, anything of that sort.
Yeah, I'll have to do it from my phone then. I have to get. I have to. Should I do that?
Actually, you know what? Once you start talking, I don't have to be speaking at that time, right? So maybe you can take over and just go from there. But for everybody who's here, or you're gonna catch the replay, because I can see people are now coming in. Uh, I don't know why my timings when I schedule it on my streaming software, it shows a different time for some reason. So there's something going on with the settings. It's funny, but I know a lot of people. We have people from joining us from other countries, so they watch the replay. So Jazakallah khair for joining us, whether you're watching it live right now or you're going to catch up later with the replay. Thank you so much for joining us. Today I have with me here Brother Wadud, who is uh, he's been doing this work for a while, talking about emotional intelligence before it became like this, this cool thing that everybody talks about now. I've seen him, help with Sunday schools and Islamic schools, and just helping professionals and um, educators in different spaces, to bring in this wisdom of emotional intelligence, emotional awareness, and just giving us some tools and knowledge about how do we go about managing ourselves with our emotions. And the more I have learned, the more I have realized that actually emotions are really not to be neglected. In fact, they are the drivers for even cognition development. Like, it is preceded by emotional maturity, and our awareness of our emotions. I feel like it's such an essential part of being a Muslim, a good Muslim. If we don't have that awareness, it's hard for us to know what is it that is driving our behaviors, even if it may seemingly look good or be the right behavior. So I am delighted that he's here with us and he's going to share with us, how do we even name what we are going through? How do we manage this? What is really happening to us? Because it's a lot to take. And maybe you can just begin from there, Brother Wadud. Like, what are we experiencing?
Jazakallah khair. I'm going to unmute myself. Jazakallah khair for having me. Thank you for having me. So, everybody that's listening, mashallah, may Allah bless you all, moms and leaders that are leading your kids and doing the tarbiyah, which is one of the main function of this ummah, the tarbiyah for kids, and bringing back a prophetic model of tarbiyah is something really important. And at the core of that model, at the core of that tarbiyah model, I'm guessing this is mainly for Muslim audience, right?
Yes.
So for Muslim moms, for and the dads, moms and dads, this is such an important part of like what is that understanding of what is that model of prophetic tarbiyah. So over the years, about 4 years ago, we started a master class, and we call it the heart-centric mindfulness model, which is how to cultivate a prophetic heart, heal in the mindfulness and presence of God, because we ourselves have various things we haven't healed from, such as self-doubt and lack of confidence, and trauma or abuse and different things that we ourselves have gone through, and then we project it on our kids. So learning to heal first in the presence of Allah, and learning to let go of those things, or make space for those things in a way that we don't project those on our parenting, or our teaching, is really important. The second thing for the heart model, E, starts with engage with purpose. Understand who you are, what your purpose is, where do you come alive, and what is your purpose in this life, and do that purpose work every day. Even if it's just half an hour, 1 hour every day that you do that purpose work, that makes you feel that no, I have invested in the reason that I'm here for in this world, and I come alive in that purpose. I come alive in serving Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or the deen, in that manner. And for some of you, it could be that deep connection that you have with your kids. You don't have to be a perfect mom or a perfect dad all day, but you have to have 10 or 15 minutes of deep connection and deep listening with your kids at least every day. So we are living in a time where it's not 100% our fault that we're always distracted. Part of it is the type of world that we live in right now. But learning to cultivate that sense of presence with your kids, and just even if it's just 15 minutes of deep connection and that deep heart to heart, like you feel that you are, your child is talking or playing or doing something together, even if it's just eating dinner and just talking from the heart, and the kids going all berserk, sharing their emotions and feelings, but you feel like they're really connecting and they're really invested in that conversation. It's a game that you're playing together, or it's just that ta'aleem that everybody's reading a hadith or something. You're going around and taking rounds, everyone doing a hadith, and you're just listening to the kids, giving them an opportunity, or that dhikr that you do every day together. That purpose, that connection is really important. The identity is really important. And then A in the heart model stands for achieve with gratitude. Is very difficult these days. We live in a time of instant gratification, but I feel that the people of Gaza and the children of Gaza are teaching us how to be more resilient as Muslims, and how to be more grateful, right? When they're beautiful stories that we're hearing, right? Like one of the scholars that was mentioning that a few months before this happened, him and many people close to him got a dream that this was going to happen, which Sheikh Abdul Nasser recently posted on Qalam. And when he told his mom that, your house was demolished, it's now like complete rubble, the mom said, yes, I saw this in a dream a few months ago, and then said, Alhamdulillah. And this shukr of Allah, despite whatever might come, it is that beautiful abundance mentality, mindset, that no matter what, it is good for me. There is blessing for me. There is a reward for me. And if it is not in this world, then in the hereafter. And that achieving with gratitude and building that gratitude in our kids is so important. Whipping them with that gratitude talk is not going to work. Rather, that practice together where you are doing, even if it's just one thing together where you make shukr of Allah from the heart, whether it's after salah just saying alhamdulillah 10 times together, or whether it's just right after eating, or when you sit at the table and before starting to eat, reflecting on the blessings and just making shukr, even if it's just one practice or two practice. And then also, more than teaching them to do it, like how to embody it ourselves, that we are people that are not complaining about every little thing, right? And it's really important to model it. And then E in the heart model stands for engage. The R in the heart model starts. It's for rise with patience, and learning about emotional regulation, making space that between the stimuli and the trigger and our response, there is a space, and in that space, lies our opportunity for freedom and growth. We're not compulsed to react. We have a choice. How do we move from being compulsed to react, to having a choice, going from compulsion to choice? Really important emotional regulation that teaches us how to build the patience muscle. And then the T for the heart model stands for thriving with compassion, that the prophetic, all of these qualities of the Prophet ﷺ, these are really important building blocks. The Prophet ﷺ had many beautiful qualities, but if you want to be emotionally intelligent like the Prophet, these are some of the key qualities we see over and over in everything. And if we are able to bring these qualities, they will help us make room for all the other beautiful qualities, right? So showing up with compassion, responding with compassion, listening without judgment. These are really important ways that the Prophet built the community around him. The community around him was not built by penalizing and disciplining. The community around him was built, of course, there are consequences and self discipline and things of that nature that is there in our practice, struggle and juhud and struggling against the nafs. Yeah, of course, the Prophet encouraged that, but that was more from an inspirational point of view where people take that rectification and that journey for themselves. But in terms of him as a teacher or a coach or a parent, he never hit his child. He, when he saw his child, he got up and he embraced them. He was the model for compassion that turned hearts and melted hearts and softened hearts to receive the message. So this heart of the prophet, this prophetic heart that is God conscious, that is mindful, that is emotionally intelligent, that understands how to connect with your emotions, and as a man, not shy away from crying in front of your companions, or not shy away from expressing the difficulties you feel as a vulnerable man, or for the ummah to learn how to express their emotions, and it's okay to express your emotions, but then how to channel it in a productive way, and also building the right mindset. So this is something we have to bring back. The prophetic model of emotional intelligence we have to bring back, right? So even before that, I think when Noor, your sister Noor, your kids came to, even before the Mindfulness Masterclass, when we first started the kids program on character development, your kids came to that program, right, Salah? And the kids, mashallah, they're big boys. They're becoming men now, like young men almost. May Allah bless them and protect them. So this was the intention, that how do we kind of let them experience their character in an emotional way. That was the intention for the project. But quickly we realized that the project is really fun, the beautiful pictures coming out of the project, beautiful events, but it's only going to last if we train the parents and teachers. So that's when we transitioned to the training schools around the country, training principals, leaders, teachers. I just presented at the ISNA West conference in Chicago. I just presented at the ISNA in Dallas. I'll be presenting at ISNA West in California. So it's just sharing that work and saying that let's bring back, we haven't got tarbiyah right in our schools, in our institutions yet. We have gotten academics to a point where, with trial and error, we have a lot of role models that have really showed us how to teach as concept in English or math or science. But in terms of how to do tarbiyah, we haven't had, a deep transformation in our organization, schools, and homes yet. So that should be one of our priorities. Academics and tarbiyah, both of these go hand in hand. So we shouldn't sacrifice one for the other. And how do we kind of invest in both? That has been our focus, right? And what you're talking about in terms of how we're feeling and how we're burning out, bringing back the prophetic heart is really important. Like, how do we heal in that presence, that when you completely cut off with social media and technology, and have this maybe evening time when you fast from phones and social media, and you have this dedicated time between Maghrib and the kids going to sleep for maybe 2 to 3 hours, where you really deeply connect over meals and over salah and over just sharing hadiths and over just letting them talk while you don't judge them for a few minutes. Have an hour of no judgment for your kid. Very difficult, and I personally myself forget it. But it's something that I can remind myself and others that, hey, let's think about, how about just a worry-free, judgment-free zone for them to say whatever they want, because they have a lot of things in their mind, and if they don't share with us, they'll go share with someone else. So it's just really important to have that time. And alhamdulillah, last night I felt like we really, we all been burnt out, right? Just, we can't get off our social media. Even people like me who's not really connected to social media, now we're glued to it, because every morning I want to see what's happening, what's the news, who's sharing what, and then you get into it and you want to get up and fight. And so it's just, there's just so much emotions there, and learning to we were able to turn off that. I went to play outside, came home, showered, and then sat with the kids. And one of my girls is her way of connecting with me is just being around me and sit by me, and another one is hugging me and all of that, right? So we were able to eat together, just give them a time to just open up, and say whatever they want, and then pray, at least do one salah together in Jama'ah, and then they're memorizing Quran. So they have this interesting schedule. Before, we tried to do all the salah together in Jama'ah, but now we at least try to do at least one. But those of you that are doing more than one, alhamdulillah, beautiful. Keep that up. And then after that, everybody read a hadith, and then we all just talked. And then alhamdulillah, we had at least that hour, 2 hours of connection. it makes you feel that you have invested in what's really important, what's most important in your life, right? That changing yourself, first and foremost, changing yourself, because that is not for the kids first. First is first for yourself, and then changing the kids. And then, that then developing that sense of identity and purpose. That what are we doing as Muslims, or what are we doing? What's my way of giving back to the ummah, right? Um, for my wife, it might be the 30 minutes drive she makes in the morning and the 30 minutes in the afternoon, like 2 hours on the road to take kids to their school so they can memorize the Quran, because they're in a very, very beautiful program. So it's a sacrifice. Is that getting up and serving the Quran for right now in our family, right? Maybe that could be her purpose. For my purpose is that how do we take this work and this research we've done for the last 7 years to the world? That's my purpose, right? For the kids, it's right now memorizing the Quran, but also we tell them about like how to also, have that sense of what do you practice? Can you practice even one ayah? Because they're kids, right? They lose their patience and then they lose themselves, and then like they're memorizing Quran, and we want to keep them at a very high standard, but they're just having all kinds of emotions. I have twin girls, going through their growth and then hormones and so on and so forth. So you have to really understand, right, how to give them that. So, coming back to building these qualities and just taking one thing at a time, maybe one point at a time every day, and just working on one little thing, one thing at a time, I know that I want to talk about empathic distress, how you're burning out, and how to come out of that burnout. I know I want to talk about
Yeah.
it, but talk for so long, I'll take a pause and let you
No,
talk.
I think you brought back a lot of different points that are relevant to us because despite whatever is going on, we have our kids around us. I mean, especially the people, in my community, they are homeschoolers. Their kids are always with them. And they're watching their parents distressed. And the distress, even for a little baby, like my little baby, like she knows I'm crying, I'm looking at something and I'm experiencing something, and it distresses her. And she doesn't even have an explanation for it. Like you can have a communication with like maybe my older kids, they know what's going on, but my daughter doesn't. Or even my older ones, for example, or my 10-year-old, or they know what's going on, but there is no end in sight. Like it's been going on for a while, and I know that this is interfering with how I can be with the people who are immediately dependent on me, right? um, there is, like, we have to understand that the test that we are under, like as people who are not in that test, but we are virtually in that test with them, virtually, like digitally, we are experiencing that trauma. And we are experiencing this other thing where we can't even get up and do anything. Like, there's only so many things we can do. We are not in that situation, but we are being tested as well. And we are wondering, like, how do we balance? Because it almost feels wrong to just go about normal life, but then the truth of the matter is there are dependents, like as a mother, I know my children depend on me. My family depends on me. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made, there are rules, like there is an order of priority in our religion, right? There is a sequence that we follow. So this is not to say that we don't do our part in the larger scheme of things, and we will do our part, but it's not going to be at the cost of what is already a responsibility, so this is where the emotional intelligence becomes important, and understanding our own self is important, and being aware of our internal state and how it's affecting us in our everyday moments. All of this becomes extremely important and relevant, and also kind of urgent. This is not something we can put off for, I'll figure this out later, because we need to have access to some tools and some ways of knowing what's happening to me. Like, for example, like there were some images that I saw, and it distressed me so much that I couldn't sleep. So, and I have a baby, who needs me. She pushes me to my very limit. I can go 1 day like that, 2 days like that, but it's not sustainable. So how do I resolve those emotions in my mind? Like, I use some techniques, and obviously, we are all doing our best, but I was reframing what I visually saw with, imagining those children in Jannah over and over again, until that is solidified in my mind. right? That, oh, these kids are actually in Jannah right now. Or I'm imagining them with Ibrahim alayhi salam, for example. This is the true reality. This is the true reality. I'm rehearsing that in my mind and finding comfort in the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in the remembrance of the hereafter, the promise of the hereafter. I'm doing all of these things. So I'm moving myself from that state of anxiety and like almost feeling like, like it's very, very threatening and very, very jarring to watch those things and not feel like it's actually happening to us. It is in a way happening to us, because it is, these are our brothers and sisters. We are connected, we are one body, right? So just knowing that you have a certain capacity, right? Like I know that there is only so much that I can consume of this before it starts to completely shut me down and not become accessible to my own family, who are like, Allah's going to ask me about, you know everything that is connected to me. So this is
Yeah,
one of the things, but there is other
yeah,
stuff
really.
too.
Yeah, this is a really important point you're making, and that reframing is really important. I think that first of all, if there is an option for your social media to turn off, any type of imagery and graphic like that, it's probably better for most of us. I know that our parents' generation. I don't know if it's a stereotype or it's like when we talk to our friends, and a lot of us talk about our parents being on the news for so long, and it was like they just had this news on. Like news was like the background music for some of them, and we just, I feel like our generation was not like this. We didn't I didn't grow up like that watching news, and it was not my thing. And and there are times that my spiritual teachers told me, whatever the really important news is going to get to you, focus on what you really need to focus on, and don't worry about all the news. The really important news is going to get to you. So it's really important to know that everybody's brain is different and we all react to news in different ways. So I think, erring on the side of caution is probably better for our brain and our mental health, because even the Prophet himself was not shown the moment to moment, update on every little Sahaba or people dying, right? He was given the vision, for example, in one time when the Sahaba fell and all these Hufaz were killed, and he was crying, right? And he was sharing with the companion. But did he get like all the little details? We don't know. Allah knows best, right? And was he shown everything? No, not shown everything, right? That's what we know. And as far as we know, and the Sahaba were not shown everything. When you are in it, you're in it.
Yeah.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when you're in it, Allah gives you that the whole body and the response of the body, the systems in your body, all of that. Plus, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about the Sahaba as they were getting in, as they were getting into a moment of that type of situation. Allah is descending tranquility on their hearts. And there were times that their narrations of Sahaba like dozing off and sleeping, like they overcame with tranquility. So there are times when people go through difficult tests
Yes.
that Allah and His angels and His mercy has a way to take
Yeah.
care of people. Not just Muslims. Even Allah's blessing is there for every human being. But for Muslims, there is a special type of mercy and tranquility,
Right.
that we know based on our faith and iman. But we are not in that moment. We are not that. We don't have the iman high like them right now. Their sacrifice and patience is their test is that patience, and our test is that whatever we can do to help,
Yep.
whether it's our du'as, but the thing is that we're losing the energy for du'as,
That's
we're
true.
losing energy for salah, we're losing energy for sadaqah or getting up and doing something by being overexposed to these things. So
Yeah.
it's like, what is my best self in terms of service to our brothers and sisters there? Dua, sadaqah, and awareness. And that awareness doesn't have to be every single day to the same audience. It could be, find a place where you can change maybe one person's mind every day. For me, I realized that when I was sharing things on Instagram, pretty much everybody that follows me on Instagram are my Muslim students, alumni. And so I'm not really showing anything to anyone other than people that already believe all this.
Right.
So the place for me where I can change some opinions maybe and at least know that people will read and think about it is LinkedIn, right? So I was never active on LinkedIn. Because of this, I started posting like almost every other day on LinkedIn, something that I know that many of my people that are not very hardline things that are going to be like just going to jump at them, but things that they can start thinking about.
Yeah.
To bring that critical thinking. My intention is not the Muslims, but the non-Muslim friends, colleagues, and people I've worked with, and they respect me. So I would hope that they would look at that, and it is with the tone that they are able to understand, right? So
Yeah.
I didn't put like
It's
put
so
a
much.
picture of like maybe the protest, but I definitely put like all the organizations around the world that are calling for ceasefire, or how to do active listening, or how to stand with humanity, and thought leadership from different places.
Yeah.
So that's important. So when I'm seeing that, okay, there's 500 impressions or 1,000 impressions, or 5 or 10 of my non-Muslim friends have liked it or supported it, I know that it's starting to change. We all see, mashallah, it's
Yeah.
starting to this time. We're starting to see this shift in the U.S. and the public opinion. So we can be part of that, but being on that all day is such a
Yeah.
disservice to ourselves and others. So figuring out what are you going to write media away from social media. I moved all my social media out of my homepage so that I don't see those icons right away, and
Right.
it's difficult for me to get to them. And then finding a time when you're going to post, and that's going to be really important. So, but I think really important is to not overexpose ourselves, or perhaps even expose ourselves to those violent images and graphics, so that we are thinking of this with a sense of dignity. These are beautiful
Yes.
children. They are beautiful in the way that their souls and their bodies are. They're beautiful in the way that Allah's mercy is surrounding them. And they're beautiful in the way that they are received by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and where they are. Like that visualization you talked about, visualizing that, reframing that, holding things with compassion. And that's probably going to be my last point. But I'll let you say, what do you think about what we're
No, I
sharing?
think that is so, like having hikmah with our, you know, activism, or engagement with people. Like, we don't want to speak in a manner that people shut off, and we don't want to be screaming in echo chambers, right? There are different techniques, but I definitely agree with you that there has to be some wisdom, deliberate practice on our part to measure things and then proceed. Like what you said, you're engaging more on LinkedIn because here you'll probably be screaming into an echo chamber, and that just frustrates us, right? I also sometimes see in the comments that people are actually, I can almost see it, that this is an emotional outburst more than the prophetic way of preaching. Like, we don't lose ourselves, our manners, when we are engaging with people. Yeah, you can call people out on the values, the common shared values, to uphold that. But sometimes it's just nastiness. Why does that happen? Because we have all these emotions going up, and like it's all bottled up, and we have frustrated ourselves so much that now we are keyboard warriors, just spewing out stuff without really thinking, like, is this going to open up somebody's mind, or is it going to shut it even more, right? And the other thing with social media, I also feel that, when you meet someone in person, there is a lot that you consider in that conversation, right? Their body language, who they are, where are they coming from, what is the shared thing that we can begin the conversation with. There are all these considerations that you make before you are actually able to effectively communicate. But online, there is an assumption that you go in with, right? And not everybody's there. So it can be very frustrating to keep screaming with this full energy there and not feeling like you're moving anything. Because, people who don't want to listen will not listen. People who don't want to engage will not engage. And your assumption could be really faulty with where you're going with it. Like, so you have to practice wisdom when you are doing any of these things. Like, I have seen people in the past, it has happened with me also. Like, people just sometimes come very directly and they allege something that you didn't even know. Like, I wasn't even thinking like that. Like, they assume some things about you, right? So we never want to go that route, because we shut off people when we do that. We don't engage. We don't really inspire them to think. We actually, there is, this the psychology behind this, right? When somebody feels attacked, they can't access their, the higher parts of their, brain, where you can actually consider the conflicting message. It shuts off. You go into your primal state. Like, you start protecting yourself. You get defensive. So then there's no communication then. So being aware of our emotions, I think that's where it begins. If you notice, like I have noticed this, that there are times I move into this phase where I'm compulsively checking my phone, or I'm feeling like really charged with my emotions, right? I know I cannot sustain this. I can't continue like this because it's going to cause problems. So I have to step away. I'm not being of any help to anybody, you know, let alone, a particular cause. Like, I'm not being of help even with my bare minimum responsibilities. So that's a self-awareness task, if I can put it that way. That is
Yeah.
everybody's burden to carry, and we have to do that. Nobody's going to do that for us.
Yeah, put it on your journal night before that this is my time and this is when I'm going to be using social media and posting my thought.
Yep.
And have like an ally or an accountability partner, whether it's your spouse or your kid or somebody, to
Yep.
ask you, like, how long were you on social media, and did you do what you need to do and get out, right?
Right.
So that's going to be important. But this last point about this burnout that we're feeling, right? The charge.
Yeah.
And um, it's a really important point. Everything you said was really important in terms of how to maintain our wisdom and to a degree composure. It's okay, I think, to share the outrage, right? If a
Yeah.
member of your family was being attacked or killed, naturally you're going to be outraged, you're going to be angry, you're going to be upset. As long as we're not cursing, right?
Yeah.
Having that outrage is probably normal for people to experience when they're especially witnessing a genocide. So that's probably okay, but just like you said, it's not sustainable for more than a certain amount of time. So going in, doing your thing, and coming out. Where none of us are really like really good at it right now, but if we can keep kind of reminding ourselves and having that sense of awareness and taking accountability every night before we go to sleep, make intention of how we're using the next day. That's probably going to be important. I would say digital detox, just like a 16 hours of like intermittent fasting, something between like 7 p.m. and next morning, somewhere around like noon, 10 to 12, somewhere around noon, like 12 to 16 hours of digital fast or social media fast is probably going to be really, really healthy every night. And days where we are completely taking technology detox. So I normally used to say one day on the weekend, but now with everything going on, I would say, like designate a day or two on the weekdays when you're not using any social media, right? None. And all you're going to do is your focused work and you're going to do your creative work. Morning, first thing when we wake up, we're touching our phone and getting on there. It's sometimes difficult not to do that. But as soon as you figure out, okay, I did that, just snap out, subhanallah bihamdi, subhanakallah bihamdik, move on to the next thing. Focus, sit and do some focus work, because focus work, mindful work, that flow of work, it heals us, right?
Yeah.
We know that mindfulness, it takes us away in presence, it takes us away from our brain is on autopilot, and our default mode network in the brain is activated when our mind is all over the place. So when
Right.
we focus and do focus work, we all of a sudden have this sense of well-being.
Right.
So it's so important, whether it's a salah that you did with focus, or whether it's that Quran or the athkar or the dua or your work. So that's going to be important. So this last point I'm going to talk about is empathic distress, how we're having this burnout. So this was like an aha moment for me when I was getting certified as a mindfulness emotional intelligence teacher based on neuroscience, and we were talking about brain science and brain research. And Matthew Ricard, one of these famous monk in France, he, when he came back after years in monastery, right? They studied his brain for several years. There has been several books and research. One of the institute, Max Planck Institute in Germany, and a few other institutes has worked on his brain. They did a study, and they basically had a study on empathy and what happens to your brain when you're feeling this sense of connection, empathy, right? You're feeling what other people is feeling. What can it do? It's a really important quality to have, empathy, but also how to balance it. Because if you don't balance it and if you do too much, then you can have that distress, right?
Okay.
Now, in the study, they were exposing all the control groups, all the subjects, to very difficult images and graphics, from war and distress and human suffering. And as they were sharing these things, right, as they were sharing these images, they were studying the brain. They were actually scanning the brain, and they're finding out how people are responding. And they found that the same place where when we ourselves go through a physical pain, and the areas of the brain, when the areas of the brain that activate, right, areas of the brain that activate when we ourselves are going through pain. They found out that they were basically that same region of the brain, the same region of the brain was being activated when they were exposed to those images and those graphics, and they realize, okay, like just by seeing somebody in pain, our brain almost mimics the pain ourselves as if we ourselves are going through the pain. Okay, all right, good. Now they looked at Matthew Ricker's brain and they saw that his rational, calm part of the brain was activated the whole time, and his pain regions didn't really activate. So, or to the degree that the activation was in most people, or generally in people, and so they were kind of really interested and curious, like, what did you do differently than all these people, right? And he said that he spent hours and years learning about the compassion meditation. That when he saw the pain of people, he held it with compassion. He held it, he said, in his mind, in his visualization, in his meditation, he held it with compassion. Now, that was a big aha moment for me. And the reason was that we know that the Prophet ﷺ was sent as the epitome of mercy and compassion. وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا رَحْمَةً. He was not sent except as compassion for the worlds, for alameen, for the worlds. His teachings are supposed to benefit even the fishes in the ocean, even the birds in the forest, right? His teachings are supposed to help and benefit everybody, the entire earth, even trees and plants. So he was sent as mercy and compassion to the worlds. But how come this same person was sent for mercy and compassion for the worlds, and this person that got up in the middle of the night and cried for his ummah, to the point that their narration about this deep empathy the Prophet had, that he cried for the ummah to the point that there is narration that the sound that came out of his chest was like a boiling kettle. So he was crying like this for his ummah. Or the hadith of Aisha, that Aisha, he made dua for forgiveness for her, and she was so happy, and he said, I make the same dua for my ummah 5 times a day after 5 salah. So that deep empathy and connection to his followers, to his ummah, to his community, to his cause. But the same person, how is he? And then he was shown, various vision of his ummah, that some of them were not very pleasant. Now, when he was having so much concern, to the point that Allah said in the Quran, that are you going to have so much concern that you're going to kill yourself?
Right.
So when Allah had to console the Prophet, so the same person, how was he smiling also most of the time?
Yeah.
How was he highly functional? How was he able to be this person that when people were with him, they felt this deep sense of healing, the deep sense of presence, right? Um, and this is when I realized that the Prophet ﷺ, he was able to hold that deep empathy and the pain of his ummah and the concern for his ummah with the rahmah and the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. فَبِمَا رَحْمَةٍ مِّنَ اللَّهِ لِنْتَ لَهُمْ. If you did not have the mercy of God with you, then you would not be able to have these beautiful qualities of keeping your companions together. So this mercy of God is something that he filled his cup with, and he held the pain and the suffering of the ummah in that rahmah, in that compassion. So what we find from this study, now the study has been replicated in many labs around the country and around the world, is that if we visualize when people are going through difficulty that they are surrounded by the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah, the Rahman and Rahim, will never leave people behind when they are going through trials or difficulties, that they're oppressed. And Allah's mercy will be surrounding them. Allah's mercy will take care of them. Allah's mercy will receive them, to the point that we know that a shaheed, when they pass, the only pain that they get is like an ant bite. And as soon as they immediately are in the presence and witness of Allah and His reception and beautiful reception. So visualizing, getting out of the visuals that we see online to visualization of the compassion and mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is really important way to shift out of the pain region of your brain and activate the pro-social region of your brain when you feel loved, when you feel hugged, when you feel held. Compassion makes you feel like that. It can shift you out of burnout. It can help you, to sustain your work. So rahma and compassion is one of those beautiful things. So Jazakallah khair, thank you so much for having me. I saw the visitors in the background, on the door.
I actually stayed back at the co-op because I couldn't go back home in time. So I'm just doing the live here. We
Alhamdulillah.
had classes since morning, but Jazakallah khair for having not having me here for coming over and sharing these things. This is going to be very beneficial. I do want to add something to what you said, and I think that's what was giving me a lot of comfort, that Allah has more mercy for these people than I can ever have. So when I'm feeling so much distress, like I want to go and help them and do things and just rescue them out of the situation. And if Allah, the one who's all powerful, all knowing, his knowledge and his I mean, who are we talking about? Like Allah loves us more. Like you can't even put a balance to how much Allah loves us, even in comparison with how much our mother can love us, right? Like these, we have to remind ourselves, these things so that we don't compulsively. And sometimes, these things also come from our own compulsions, our own like unhealed self, that we want to be the rescuer, like, and maybe, someday we'll talk about these things, but these things are all not without some sort of background. So we want to be balanced people. At the end of the day, we follow the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And yes, we are yes, we are distressed, but we have to ground ourselves and give that time to ourselves and get even more spiritual, like be in our own company and connect with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala if we truly want to help and make a difference. So, and that helps with emotions. Our emotions can be processed in the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and our connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Take it to Him instead of trying to affect change through people and means, and you know just bring all of that charged energy and let it dissipate before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the form of dua, in the form of tears, in the form of your worship, your connection. And that's where it's supposed to go, actually. That's the purpose of all of these trials and tribulations in the first place. So inshallah, may Allah help us connect back to
Beautiful.
our and our deen.
That's,
And
that's really beautiful. Can I say one last thing?
yes,
Share one last thing? So
yes,
I want to share one last thing. We're working on these type of practices around the Prophet. Around we're working on an app, and I would love for whoever is watching to join our waitlist. Inshallah, we're about to launch it. So this is our website. It's called Murakaba.app. Murakaba, it comes from the name of Allah, Raqib, who's always watching and learning to be more mindful. So we're trying to inshallah launch this in the next 30 to 60 days. We have counselors, psychologists, endorsement of scholars that we've been working on, trying to bring all the work and courses we've done into small bite-sized practices and tools for the Muslim community, inshallah, around the world. So I would recommend everybody to come to our website, murakaba.app, and get on our wait list. Inshallah, we'd love to see your support and love to see you support our work, inshallah, as we try to go global.
all the
Jazakallah
best.
khair. Thank you so much.
Jazakallah khair, brother Wadud. Thank you so much. Inshallah, catch you later. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.